Hi, Voices of the Bench community. I'm Laura Prosser, the digital marketing manager here for Ivoclar North America, and I would like to invite you to start following us on Instagram. It's your chance to obtain exclusive updates on product announcements, industry news, upcoming educational events, and heartwarming stories about our local team and industry professionals. So let's get social together. Simply start following us on Instagram at ivoclar.na. That's Instagram at ivoclar.na. We'll see you there.
Welcome to Voices from the Bench, a dental laboratory podcast. Send us an email at info@voicesfromthebench.com and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Greetings and welcome to Voices from the Bench, episode 366. My name is Elvis.
My name is Barbara, and double sixes.
Double sixes, and we're coming to you from Cologne, Germany at the IDS show.
That is the craziest thing and the biggest dream that we've ever had.
It's so crazy. So Barb and I, we don't usually get to do these.
We don't ever do these face to face.
It's kind of weird.
I had a little moment there. I'm like, this is weird.
I don't know. I'm off. It's a different time zone.
Oh yeah.
We don't even know what day it is.
Nope.
We can barely see daylight.
We've been working hard, though, guys. We've got like at least 20
We've
interviews.
been talking to way more than that.
We haven't gotten up at all.
And for those that have never been to IDS, it is huge. It is unbelievably the biggest place I've ever been.
It's 20 times bigger than I thought it was going to be.
Yes.
It's literally miles and miles, and that's no joke. So, yeah, it's...
Just a quick story. I tried to leave yesterday and I got lost. And
Same.
It took me almost an hour just to get out of this facility.
Yes.
Just to find Uber or a taxi.
I mean, visualize that. That's literally a true story. We both got lost.
It's crazy.
It took an hour to find the front. It's just, yeah, but we're excited.
And I'll say a huge thanks to exocad.
Yes, thank you, exocad.
They have, that clapping's for us. Just kidding.
No.
They've put on a great booth. I don't even want to call it a booth. It's so intense.
It's like a big, giant mansion.
It's a mini city.
Yeah.
Because there's rooms over there. There's coffee over there. There's private rooms behind us. There's a locker room. It's just...
There's computers everywhere.
Everywhere.
There's design technicians everywhere.
Design stations, a main stage.
They have people bringing us coffee in a very nice way.
Constantly. I'm
what
jacked
can we
on
do
caffeine.
for you? Yeah, we're super specialized.
It's amazing. But... we're not going to stop releasing content and bringing you an episode just because Barb and I are in another
we're
country.
Exhausted. That's all.
So we are actually 1,000 miles away from Chicago. Thousands of miles away.
Yes, sir.
But we're still going to feature a conversation that I actually got while at the Cal Lab Association meeting.
Go Cal Lab.
Back in February. Yeah, Barb wasn't there, blah, blah, blah.
I know.
But there's no secret that I love a good conversation about implants and surgeries.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when the creator of OptiSplint reached out to us about being on the podcast, and I actually found out they're going to be at Cal Lab, let's make this work.
Heck yeah.
And we arranged a time, and they came over. Now, I've listened to this a few times, editing, things like that, and I've kind of noticed that I geeked out so much in my excitement that I don't think I actually really explained simply what OptiSplint was. Basically, they're metal markers that you screw into a multi-unit abutment, right?
Yep.
Then they get all luted together, and then you're able to scan it with an iOS. And because they're luted together, you're able to get one consistent scan accurately.
Wow.
Now that you get the gist of it.
Got it.
We're going to get deep into it in this conversation.
And everybody, all our listeners, know you love implants.
So first up
awesome.
is Danny Yao. He has a history with the NDX and Sequence, right? So he's into that. And with Straumann. He spent a lot of time with Straumann. So this dude knows some implants. It was when he was visiting a dental school that he met Dr. Russell Crockett. Now, Dr. Crockett had a simple but unique way of doing these cases without the need of photogrammetry. So together they worked on creating OptiSplint. And after a lot of testing, a couple of revisions, they eventually partnered with Rowe Dental Lab, and the workflow started growing in popularity. Now they have a whole company where they sell OptiSplint and arch tracers, all under the name of Digital Arches. So join us as we chat with Danny Yao and Dr. Russell Crockett.
Are you a dental lab in need of more talent to improve your bottom line and keep production on schedule? Are you a dental tech with great skills but feel you're being limited at your current lab? Well, the answer is here. Hi, I'm Mark from Win-Win Go, and this is precisely why Win-Win Go was created. The dental lab and dental tech community needed a place where labs and technicians can meet, talk about their needs, and connect in ways that foster a win-win outcome. As a tech, if you're ready to make a change, thinking about moving in the next year, or just curious what's out there, sign up today. It's totally free. As a lab, you might be feeling the frustration of paying the big employment sites so much and getting so few tech candidates. We understand. They don't much care about our industry. WinWinGo.com is simply the best place for lab techs and lab owners to actively engage in creating their ideal future. WinWinGo.com. How dental techs find paradise.
Voices from the Bench. The interview.
I can't even remember how we connected.
I think I emailed you because I was listening to some of your podcasts. I'm like,
yes,
you know all these. You've been like talking to all these people that I know. I'm like, we should probably see if we can get in there as well. So.
Yeah. So what? The creator of the OptiSplint emails me, and I'm like super nerding out because I'm like, I probably just did an OptiSplint case that day, that week, or something.
That's
I'm
funny.
like, that's so cool.
That's
yes.
fantastic.
Yes. He's like,
That's
well, when
so
can we
cool.
do this? I'm like, Cal Lab, I'll be there. And I'm like, this is how it works.
That's so awesome.
So here we are at Cal Lab.
Yeah.
Danny
Yao.
Yao
Yep.
and Dr. Russell Crockett.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
Davey?
Like Davey, yeah.
Yeah, do you get that a lot?
I do. My dad's name is Davey. So.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Yep.
That's
Funny joke. Yep.
That is
Yeah.
hilarious. That's something I didn't know about him.
There you
and I thought
go.
I knew everything. Shoot,
So
man.
I don't know who wants to start, but Danny, give me your story. How do you come up with one of the coolest things I've ever done?
I really appreciate you saying that. But yeah, I mean, I'm not a dental person by, I guess, career or anything.
Yeah,
Like,
really.
I started in pharmaceutical sales after I graduated from college, and did that for a while.
That's a hard
several
market,
years.
man. Isn't
Well,
it?
back then it was
Selling
cool.
drugs? I mean,
back then, in early 2000, that was a fun job, man. It was like we had suites to the Lakers. We were flying people to Hawaii all the time.
Oh.
We played golf every weekend.
Is
This
that
is
before the Sunshine Act?
Before the Sunshine Act was actually enforced. Man, that was a fun job.
I bet.
And then it got real sad after the Sunshine Act. They took everything away from us.
did you learn pharmaceutical sales in college?
No,
No. Do you have a college degree in something you can't use?
I
or
was.
what?
I had a college degree. I had a degree in biology. I went to UCLA.
Oh, okay.
Got a degree in biology. Didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, so I spent a year in Japan teaching English.
Oh, no kidding. That's
Yeah.
fun.
And then I went backpacking for 6 months around Asia.
Holy schmoly.
And
Wow,
then from
nice.
there, I finally ended up
Selling
coming
drugs.
back here and then selling drugs.
Yeah, okay.
And I thought, it seemed like the ideal job, right? Like, you work from home, you go and eat nice dinners every week.
Schmooze
you
the doctors. Yeah.
All of my coworkers were beautiful women. It was incredible. It was a
Then
great
why the hell
job.
they hire you?
I was the nerdy guy they sent in when they wanted the doctor to actually talk to somebody.
Oh, you knew what you were talking. I
Yeah.
get it. Yeah.
I was that nerd. I was a nerdy guy that kind of got along with them, and I was like the one that would kind of pull them out of their shell a
Sure,
little bit,
yep.
and then
Yep.
the beautiful women would close the deal.
All right.
that was the work.
So Sunshine Act put the
Yeah.
stop to all the fun.
Yep. So I went into medical device sales for a bit. Didn't
That's
love
such
that.
a broad term. What are you selling?
Yeah.
Come on.
I was selling. It was called the OrthoPad. It was basically a blood auto transfusion device. So during surgery, the blood would come out of the patient because they're bleeding or whatever. They would suck it up.
Yeah.
And then it would go through this machine. It would get concentrated, and it would get the patient's own blood would get given back to them instead of.
Oh.
It was a cool machine.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
Yeah, it
sounds
was
expensive.
and
but
we were
good.
in the surgeries. It was neat, right?
Oh, you actually were there when they were
Yeah,
using it and
yeah,
stuff?
yeah.
Wow.
All this stuff comes to an end, right? It's like if you hit your number, or you don't hit your number. There's all these stuff going on.
Yeah.
Sales jobs are just like that, right?
Yep.
And then I ended up in Dentium, which is my first dental job.
Dentium?
It was a
Sounds familiar.
Alan
Alan Banks, we don't
Alan
need
Banks.
you, sir.
Actually, Alan Banks is probably one of the only people that actually. No, go for it. I have stories about Alan, man. Like when we were early in development, because Rowe Dental Lab, I want to tell you this before you leave. Rowe Dental Lab was the guys that launched us.
Really?
Like Grammetry was the first introduction of OptiSplint to the world.
I
right?
didn't realize that.
Yeah. And they basically discovered us. Like we found them at Dentsply World, in 2022 or 20, yeah. And then we showed it to them. They were the first ones that were like, "This is."
Did you show it to other labs that said this is stupid, and it was Rowe or were they just the first?
Yeah, I mean, I think back then, not many people got it.
No, Rowe has always been the leader of that
and
whole
I will say, Alan is the reason for that.
Of course.
Like, not many people, and you could test this. Like, we talked to a lot of people about our product.
Yeah.
Alan is one of the few people that actually added to it. And made it better. There's a lot of things just like that, and just talking about it, just in general with you. Most of the time, me and Russ will be like, yeah, like somebody will come to us with a new idea, make our product better, and we'd be like, yeah, we did that 2 years ago.
Yeah. They picked up on it really fast, too. It was like they just understood it right away.
Yep.
Nice.
So,
I'm not on the mic. You talking about me text a picture over the lab?
Yeah.
Sign us up. Yeah, 100%.
That's right. So that was we could go into that story.
Yeah, come on,
Alan.
Alan. Keep moving. We're talking to these gentlemen. It's fun while it lasted.
Yeah.
Okay, so medical device sales, blood fusion.
Yeah. Blood auto transfusion. Now I'm in Dentium, which is a Korean dental implant company. They are probably the number 2 behind Hyosin, I think, around the world.
So selling implants.
They were trying to come into the U.S. They were having, not a lot of success.
Yeah.
They still haven't really gained a lot of the success that people don't really know about them. So I spent a few years there.
Wow.
And then
it's longer than most reps.
Yeah. And then ended up at Dentium selling endo files.
Oh, that's
Tulsa Dental Specialties.
Fun. Yeah.
They had an implant division, and then I went from there to Straumann, where I was an institutional account manager.
Oh.
And I sold to universities, which is where I met Dr. Crockett here.
Okay.
He was a resident at UCLA at the time, and I covered all the universities and VA centers around LA area.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so Loma Linda University, USC, all the residency programs were under kind of my purview as a rep.
Do they all use Straumann exclusively?
They all do now. I do
you did
like
your job.
to. Yeah, I am very prideful of the work I did there.
Nice.
I did feel like I made a pretty big impact for Straumann in those days. I think a lot of the residents there probably have a pretty good legacy for Straumann, and it continues today. Like you'll go back to those programs, and
they're still doing Straumann.
And they're still doing Straumann most of the time. So it's nice to see that when you've made that kind of impact.
Absolutely.
From there, I ended up at InSequence, which is where I started to get my my full arch chops, I guess.
Is that NDX's?
Yeah. So
okay.
it had just been acquired by NDX. One of the managers that used to work for Straumann ended up over there, and she became like the director of sales for NDX InSequence. And then
so did you start going out and doing conversions and stuff?
So I was one of the first 2 salespeople that they hired to kind of teach kind of this whole idea to. I was covering the whole West Coast. I've never flew that much in my life. It was from Kansas City all the way west.
Wow.
So I was just traveling every week doing programs, doing lab programs, things like that, and then just going to surgeries, taking care of customers that were doing it, things like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was when I was a Straumann rep and Russ was still at UCLA, Dr. Hogg was still at UCLA.
No, you're good.
Only
titles, please.
He actually in 2015.
Probably closer to 2015, 2016.
2015, he replicated NDX InSequence himself in his residency program.
Do you want to admit this copyright infringement on the air, or what do you mean?
Well, we weren't selling guides or anything.
Yeah,
so
he wasn't selling,
but
he was able to actually create it himself.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that's kind of where my part of this kind of started.
Yeah.
Was when I met Danny at UCLA.
Yep.
He and then my process director at the time, Kumar Shah, really were pushing co-diagnostics and some other, Straumann-related tools, planning, and got way into digital design, restorative, and then surgical planning. And over the course of a couple years during residency, just got really good at CAD. And then I realized that if I really wanted to be free, I needed to learn actual CAD in, Autodesk.
And so you taught yourself all that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now I don't know how good I am in terms of like bigger things, but I learned Fusion 360, which is one of Autodesk's CAD programs, and just practiced with that. Just did different projects just for fun and got better and better at it. But yeah, it was during residency that I really learned a lot of that stuff, and it set the stage for what we ended up doing later.
So
with
you made
OptiSplint.
your own stackable guide with the prosthesis that connects and the holes in it.
Yeah.
Okay.
3D printing.
Yeah, UCLA was doing a big transition into digital dentistry at the time. They were spending money on new scanners, 3D printers, mills. Yeah,
it's
so
odd for a school to be that progressive.
Yeah. So from a graduate level, it was great, and me being how far along I was with the residency, it was an opportunity for me to jump in and kind of just do whatever I wanted to do, because nobody really knew how to do anything at the time, because it was such brand new stuff. So I was kind of given freedom to jump in and play with the mills, printers, do designs, try different things. So I really spent a lot of time in the office, in the digital lab versus seeing patients. So I could argue that some of my training from a clinical standpoint suffered a little bit because I spent so much time. I had a faculty that used to make fun of me because I would spend more time in the office than on the clinical floor. But no, it all came together and things worked out.
Yeah.
So
he was making surgical guides and temporaries and the whole thing, right? That you would get from InSequence just in the same way, just for his residency program, right? So like the other residents that were there that were doing cases, they were doing surgery, the whole thing. He was there. He would be there designing all of that stuff, printing it, getting it ready for surgery, getting it ready there, and it all came from him being frustrated because I think they were doing InSequence cases, and then they did some kind of big speaker event at the AO, and overnight they became this sensation, right, for InSequence.
Oh, okay.
With Danny Yao.
Yeah.
And they just went from we can get it back to you in 20 days to oh, I'm sorry, it's going to take you 3 months for us to get to turn around.
Got too busy.
Yeah, they got too busy. And so he was just well, if they're going to take that long, I'm just going to do this myself.
So what program did you do them on?
So I would pair co-diagnostics with Mesh Mixer.
Okay.
And then my introduction to actual CAD was the Mesh Mixer sister program that no longer exists, 123D Design.
Oh, never heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I started using that. It was free, and I could do basic designs. Part of it was that I wanted to 3D print articulator plates attached to my models so that I could 3D print everything already articulated.
Oh, nice.
And click it onto the articulator. So I was designing articulator plates. Super nerdy.
Yeah,
as a prosthodontist, but
you were a kid in college, weren't you?
But using that program, and then they discontinued it and they stopped servicing the software, so you couldn't get it. So I ended up getting just the academic version of Fusion 360.
Yeah, nice.
And started using that from there on.
Nice.
But it was for the surgical guides. It was just co-diagnostics and Mesh Mixer.
And what were you printing on at this time?
We had I think it was a J700. It was a large PolyJet printer from Stratasys.
Oh, Stratasys.
And so I print the models and the guides on that. And
nice.
Then I think we had a Bago printer as a VAT printer that we printed some guides on. So
all right, so you're selling InSequence.
Oh, yeah, so I was selling Straumann. I was at Straumann at the time.
Oh, okay.
When he did all that, because I provided him co-diagnostics. I got him their first lab scanner.
Yep.
I got them all that stuff so they can kind of get it all digitized so that you can start doing that stuff, right? So one of the things that I've always kind of done in my life was just kind of always take stock of who around me is remarkable.
Yeah.
Right? And he was one of those people. I just never could believe all the things that he was able to accomplish in his residency program as somebody who should have been seeing more patients.
Probably.
Should have learned how to prep at that time. That's what you're there
Being able to do it at will, right? He just created these things just because he wanted to, and he just was interested in being able to create it. So I just kind of just wanted to stay in touch with him. So I ended up in InSequence. While I was in InSequence, we started to hear about digital workflows for full arch. We started to hear about photogrammetry. It was about 2020 right? And so I was talking to the PIC people. I was talking to, like Camille I met. You had him on the podcast. I was talking to a lot of those people just trying to get an idea of what it was, how it worked. Because when I was looking at InSequence, I was like, this is, like, InSequence has a lifespan now. Yeah. Because that's next, right? Yeah. And I was thinking about my job, and I was like, well, is this going to be viable, right? Is this job going to be viable? And so I wanted to really understand what that next kind of evolution was. And he and I sat down to dinner because I was in Arizona. He's in Arizona. I'm in California. We were sitting down to dinner and we were just talking about it. And I was telling him, he's like, "Oh yeah, I already looked into all that stuff." And then he's like, "I already kind of designed something that I think will work." And he shows me this photo, right, of stuff that he was working on. It was 3D printing it in his house.
Yeah, I had a prototype of it.
Of the OptiSplint.
Yeah, kind of an early version that wasn't really a fully functional product at that point. It was more of a I was going to publish it. It was going to be in a study.
Was the concept the same?
Very similar. The concepts changed a lot, though, on how to achieve the accuracy.
Yep.
First started, the idea came from there was an article in the March 2019 JPD issue, and it was about using a tissue-supported device that would sit around implant scan bodies. It was custom made for the arch.
Slip over?
You would slip over, and it improved scanning accuracy. But it's tissue supported, and the study was done on benchtop on stone. So it's like, okay, on stone, great. It shows that the intraoral scanning improves.
Breathing.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I was like, well, that's great, but it doesn't make sense clinically. I think something needs to be attached physically to the implants. And so we designed it. I designed the prototype with the wings facing inwardly so you can scan across.
Yep.
And it allows you to stitch to something rigid, and you don't have to rely on the soft tissue for inter-implant stitching.
Did you start this whole grammetry thing? Was there anything out?
I have no idea.
No, I mean that there was some like stuff that was being developed. Like Nexus iOS was still in Australia being developed.
Okay.
And we heard about it. It wasn't released yet. There's another company called Tectonic that Straumann recently acquired that was also creating something that was they were trying to scan with intraoral scans, right?
But nobody's really doing this yet.
Not really. I mean, photogrammetry was just coming to market, right? Or it probably been in market for 5 years, but nobody understood it. And nobody had a way to really implement it.
It seems like everybody was thinking about it at the time. Yep. And, it could be one of those things where people had similar ideas kind of in unison and parallel. There was nothing published, and that was the purpose of it. As I was going to do this, and I was going to do an accuracy study, benchtop.
You're just looking to write a nerdy paper.
I was just, looking to write a paper, to get the publication. But getting busy with things, private practice, partially maybe some laziness.
So you've now graduated.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. You've opened up your own practice. Yeah,
this was probably 2 or 3 years after I had graduated.
Okay.
And it just sat collecting dust for about a year.
Yeah. He had it didn't do anything. Year before I talked to him about it.
I mean, we could have been doing this a year earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you son of a... So you've developed this prototype. The idea is there.
And it was all about intraoral scanning,
right.
iOS, relying on iOS for accuracy.
Improving iOS, trying to improve the accuracy of iOS with a device that is allowing you to stitch hard parts, like things that you would scan that are all hard. Basically what a lot of different companies are trying to release today, from Rose Arch Bridge to the Easy...
Oh, the Evolves one?
The Evolves thing.
The Easy something.
The Easy... And
there's a lot of them out there.
The True Abutment thing they're talking about that they've been in contact with 3Shape One, like all of those things are trying to improve intraoral scanning. They're trying to make intraoral scanning more perfect and more accurate. But the reality, and we were trying to do the same thing, right? In 2020, we were trying to figure out how we can make intraoral scanning more perfect, because that's the big problem, right?
Yeah.
Is how do we get highly, highly accurate dental implant positions at a reasonable cost, and doing it with technology that we have, right? And what we kept running into was there's just this human factor of intraoral scanning that you cannot get rid of.
The hand movement?
Yeah. Who's doing it? Who trained you to scan? Like, you can tell people how to scan properly all you want, but at the end of the day, every single intraoral scanner is different. and scanning process has to be different.
Yeah.
Every single person scans differently. They start from a different spot. They end at a different spot. They have different techniques to get more accuracy.
Yeah.
There's so many factors that can change the accuracy of that scan that just don't – that for us, we wanted to create something that was a true alternative to photogrammetry. And we wanted to be able to have something that we felt prosthodontists could do it, and the assistant helping a general dentist can do it, right? And they would get the same result. And that was our goal, and we were just not achieving that. So that was one of the hardest lessons that we had to learn.
And I think it was even the very first case that we did with the original version was a big breakthrough for us, because we realized that relying on just intraoral scanning, especially during a surgery, is just not going to be reliable. And it was a pretty rough case because there was a lot of bone reduction, 4 implants on the mandible. We put these things on, and it was difficult to scan. And it's like, okay.
So which scanner did you use that first time? Do you remember?
Just Dentsply scanner.
I think it was, I think it was a prime scanner.
Yeah, okay, so that's not the issue.
It was a prime scan,
No. What was it, the shape
a lot
of
of saliva, a lot of blood, just
But that's going to be with every surgery.
Exactly. And so we were at the time using frames to lute on, but the frame was simply to improve scanning because the wings were a fixed length. And so we used a frame, but we weren't rigidly attaching it. We were using basically PVS or I think it was Blue Moose, the bite registration material. We'd attach it just to give us a nice
squeeze
clean
Blue Moose around it. We'd
put Blue Moose on the wings and then seat the frame on it just to hold it in place semi-rigidly just to get the nice scan. But
didn't work.
It was rough.
We delivered a temporary prosthesis that day.
We delivered one.
That's the important thing.
My confidence.
We don't care if it's 11 o'clock at night.
My confidence in it was not great.
Yeah.
But it did prove a few things. One is speed. The whole process was fast enough to 3D print a temporary prosthesis right then and there. And the other thing was that we realized we needed to, we're practically luting this thing together anyways. Let's just use a rigid material. Then we can take it out of the mouth and scan it outside the mouth.
Yeah. So the original idea was to scan this thing outside of the mouth?
In the mouth.
In the mouth.
That was the original
version.
Then you switch it to scanning it outside of the mouth.
Yeah.
Right, because it was a rigidly luted together piece.
Do people still do that?
Scanning
That's not how we do it, outside of the mouth.
It should be done that way.
Because
why
am I doing it wrong?
Why fight blood, tissue,
saliva? Wait a minute.
There's no reason to.
You're supposed to flap implants, multi-units, put this thing in, lute it together with the honeycomb thing, take it out, and then scan it?
Yeah.
But then how do you get it into relation to the soft tissue?
Our
and all
scan
that?
caps that we
I use those too.
Yeah, so those are the same shape as the back of the scan bodies.
You just blew my effing mind.
So we did everything we can.
We scanned it inside the mouth.
It'll
still work.
Yeah, those scan caps have half of that scan. Well, half of the OptiSplint matches this.
That's crazy.
It matches the geometry of the scan cap.
Instructions or something? No, I'm just kidding.
Could be helpful.
Yeah.
Anyways, it allows you to scan the tissue separately, and it gives you a direct alignment to the OptiSplint.
And also that honeycomb thing doesn't cover fiduciary screws, because that's what we struggle with.
Yep.
We're like, you can't get the screw, but you're supposed to take that thing out.
Yep.
Yeah,
and then you can wash it, you can clean it and dry it, and then we have a scan plate that we sell, and then you just stick it on the scan plate, and then you just scan it outside the mouth with your intraoral scanner. You're never going to get a more accurate scan.
I can't wait to talk to this guy I work with on these things. That's hilarious.
And then, of course, if you have a desktop scanner right there, that's even better.
Oh, you could. Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Since it's one piece.
And that's what we recommend for finals, because now you have like this beautiful verification jig, right? And then you could scan it in a desktop scanner, 4 microns of accuracy. Now we're achieving the same level of accuracy.
That's nuts.
Of photogrammetry, right? And that's ultimately what we wanted this product to be. Like when we were developing it, it took us 3 years to develop it, from 2020 to 2022.
What changed? Like, was it originally printed material?
Yeah,
metal?
they were made out of plastic, and then it all goes back to rigidity. You need this thing to be rigid, and so
the shape is very weird.
It's a bizarre shape.
Yeah. You know what? When we scan it, it looks like a military. Almost like a naval, nautical-like thing. I don't know.
The shape was originally designed for intraoral scanning.
Okay, which we apparently successfully do every time.
So
we don't need to. I'm not going to get over
the taper to it, things like that. So that was part of the evolution too. I would say that's more of a vestigial aspect of it is the taper, but it's still easy. It still makes it easier to scan outside the mouth just because of the taper.
Yeah.
And in a desktop scanner, if you're not doing like a wax up scan, you can capture most of it.
And someone told me the idea of luting it together was more so when you printed a model, you have a verification jig.
Yeah,
but I'm like, we don't print a model. I mean, why?
Yeah, or you just pour an analog patty cast.
Yeah. So, I know somebody that does it. Yeah, a doctor in Louisville does that.
That's what I do often. Is I'll pour the analog patty cast. That way, if I ever want to do a clinical remount with the prototype try-in, I can do that. Obviously, you can do that modelless as well. After you adjust occlusion of the prototype, you can scan and do a clinical remount digitally.
Yeah.
But sometimes I like to do it physically if I feel like there's a need.
That's crazy.
And that's one of the real unique things about OptiSplint, right, is that when you really think about what it takes to achieve clinical passivity for a patient, this whole digital workflow kind of revolution that's happening is really they're trying to do everything fully digital, right? Have no analog piece of it at all and just, modelless everything, right? The problem with that is at the end of the day, to achieve clinical passivity, you need to get an absolutely ideal record of the implant positions. Photogrammetry, OptiSplint can give you that. But you also need a way to validate your manufacturing. Because when you take that perfect record and you make a temporary prosthesis and you 3D print it, how accurate is 3D printing actually? It's not great.
It's not there,
And then sintering zirconia, people are milling zirconia directly to making zirconia prosthetics directly to the MUAs now, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, is it actually that accurate when you actually do that? I mean, milling's very accurate, but then sintering and all that stuff, is it always going to sinter perfectly to get it to that size? Probably most of the time it will.
Yeah.
But, the few times it won't, that's when you can cause problems, right?
Yeah.
And claiming like the kind of accuracy that photogrammetry does and saying, hey, everything that you make from this record is going to be perfect. Well, that's not really true because they can't control the manufacturing. They can only give you a great record.
Yep.
Whereas OptiSplint, and the difference between OptiSplint and everything else that's out there is that we can actually give you something tangible to allow you to validate and verify everything.
Yeah, because all the other systems, once you unscrew them, they're no longer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so you can make a patty model from the OptiSplint jig. If you can always recheck that jig on the patient, and then you can always recheck it on your model, and then you can whatever you make, you can check it on that model. And as long as it's passive on the model, you know for sure that that's going to fit passively on the patient.
That's awesome.
So there's nothing else out there on the market that allows you to do that. And that is true clinical full arch standards, what clinical full arch standards should be.
Yeah.
Right? Is that we are certain that something's going to fit perfectly before we put it in, not just hoping.
Oh, but the hoping's half the fun. Keeps us interesting. Okay, so you've designed this thing. How did you even bring it to market?
So that was a big story as well. I mean,
obviously you probably tried to sell it to implant companies. Did you go that route?
We did meet with a lot of different implant companies, but without it being proven and the niche nature of this product made it really hard to understand.
Sure.
I was still working at InSequence and NDX at the time that we were developing it.
You did this.
I tried to actually show it to them.
Really?
The high executives at NDX, and they just didn't understand it.
Wow.
And they were like, just kind of we had meetings with BioHorizon, we had meetings with Nobel, we had meetings with Straumann, and the problem is the people that are having these meetings are not full arch experts.
Yeah.
And how many full arch experts actually are there out there? There's not that many.
Not as many.
Right?
Yeah.
Especially at dental implant companies, right?
Yeah,
those guys they're probably smart as hell, but then this is such a niche, unique small market that in order to be a true expert and understand it at the level to really appreciate what OptiSplint is, it's rare.
Yeah.
And so being able to communicate what it was and how it was, and a lot of them were just like, well, it's not fully digital. So, and all we want to do is move to fully digital. So what's the point of this thing, right? And so at that point we were trying, we had our design, we had our concept.
You've done some successful cases.
Yeah, we were testing it.
Are you the doctor doing all the cases on this thing? Or?
Yeah, I mean, at first I was the main one testing it, and then we would work with a couple other doctors that
oral surgeons
helped us a lot.
Yeah.
Just because of their volume.
Yep.
Sure.
I do full spectrum prosthodontics, so while I do full arch, it's not probably at the volume we needed to properly test everything.
Taking a while to go to market.
So we went to a few other doctors to do some testing with them.
Nice.
I mean, I shout them out. It's Dr. Eric Baker and Tim Batita out of Huntington Beach or Dana Point. They have a lab technician, Lenny Gliona, that was there that helped us out a lot in terms of like just trying out the cases, trying out the OptiSplint.
Yeah.
They got a photogrammetry machine. We were comparing them.
Oh, really? Interesting.
You know, trying to do it that way versus our way. We even had a race one day to see who can do it faster. I think we actually won that race, right?
We were done by 10 a.m.
Yeah, we were done by 10 a.m. and they were still trying to scan stuff.
Really?
Because they were having trouble doing the intraoral scans, I think.
Yeah.
And like,
That's hilarious.
And yeah, I mean, we were able to do cases like, you know, kind of every single day because they had cases every single day.
Yeah.
And then Curry Levitt, we did a lot of cases.
We did a lot of
with
cases
him,
with Curry Levitt. Yeah, that's right. And he was awesome too. Like he really tried to kind of get as many cases for us as he could.
Yep.
And
he'd let us come in and set up the printers and everything we needed to. Yeah.
Yeah, so we kind of proved the model of being able to actually go and provide this service to a doctor's office, right, as a lab.
So how the hell do you end up at Cal Lab selling it? How did you bring it to market, you know?
So from there, we had to figure out how to manufacture it, and that was challenging because like I don't have any manufacturing experience.
Yeah, I don't want to know who to call. I'd be in the phone
We don't
book.
know materials.
Who does metal?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I happen to speak Mandarin Chinese. I grew up speaking Chinese. So my first thought was, well, let's just find out let's just see if we can find a milling center in China. But my problem was I didn't want to just go to a dental company in China because I was worried
they'd steal it.
They'd just steal it, yeah. And so I had to find a milling company in China that had no experience just making small component parts, right?
Yeah.
And then I had to teach them how to manufacture at the level of tolerances that we needed because they had to be made at about 20 Newton centimeters or 20 microns of tolerance. Yeah. So between one scan body to another, they couldn't vary more than about 20 microns, right?
Really?
And that was challenging for them because most of the stuff they're making was just
novelty things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so we had to figure out what material we had to make it out of. We ended up selling on aluminum because we wanted it.
Those are aluminum?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
We wanted a disposable material. We wanted a disposable product, basically, a single patient use product. We were in the middle of COVID when we were developing this. And we thought it made sense for us to make a single use product that you would just lute together. You would never, try to take them apart or anything like that. And
we can take this out later, but everybody uses them multiple times, right?
Yeah, so that's not recommended because it is made out of aluminum. And the reason why we chose aluminum also is because when you manufacture 10,000 of these at a time, it's easier to maintain those tolerances than when you're doing it with titanium because you have to change the mills more. And this is all stuff we learned while
I'm sure you guys got a
the
quick
cost
business.
of milling titanium would have been really high.
Oh, yeah.
And for us, I mean, our price point was we had to keep it around $200-$300. It was what we were trying to. That was our goal. Is we want every single kit because we didn't want people to fit. It was going to be a one-time use device.
Yeah,
right?
You can't charge thousands of dollars.
Right, exactly.
For something I got to only use once. Yeah.
So, and we were like, well, what does a doctor typically pay a dental lab to make a verification jig? About $200-$300, right? At least in that time.
Yeah.
And so that was our goal pricing. So we couldn't make things a certain way, and to make it, I mean, we're still throwing away about 20% of what we make in the manufacturing center. Just
because it's no good?
Doing QC, yeah, because it's just not milled to the tolerances that we
should
need.
Find somebody else to make them.
But that's just reality. Like, I mean, when I worked at Straumann, we had all these dummy implants because they were just
they didn't
rejects.
meet. Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, because every implant company, their standard is about 20 to 25 microns of accuracy, and so if it doesn't meet that standard, they just get thrown into a big pile of dummy implants, right? And so we kind of mimicked that tolerance, and then we tried to make them. We had to make them at a scale, right, of like 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 at a time. But that was our model, right? We wanted to create a product that would just be continually bought, right?
Yeah.
Because we felt like if we just made something that was reusable and we sold it once, like that wasn't a viable business either.
No, I mean, obviously.
Yeah. So, and then what happens when something else? But so we just thought that we had to create an actual business model that would actually be sustainable in a way that would allow us to bring this product to market.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's kind of that challenge that we had to figure out. And so we did end up getting the right manufacturer over time. I actually started a dental or kind of a dental distribution company or manufacturing company in China myself.
Oh, jeez. That's one way to find the one you want.
Well, we had to control a lot of the process, bringing it over here, right? So that's what I used that company for.
Wow.
And then finally we were able to kind of bring everything over, and then we launched it, I think, August of 2022.
Yep.
We launched our webpage the first time, and I think we sold one kit of like $400.
How are you pushing it out there? Social media?
We were two guys that have no business starting a company.
You didn't buy an ad in a magazine?
No, we were just trying to I was going to shows. Well, for a year, I also was proving it on my own. Like I had left InSequence at that time, and then I just started taking it to doctors' offices going, hey, man, if you want somebody to come in and do a conversion for you, I can do it with digital technology now. I'll bring my 3D printer, and I'll do the whole thing in your office. And so I did that for a year, and then it's just a matter of I started running some Facebook ads. I started doing a little bit. We sold one, right?
That's rough.
And then October, I think we sold one or two. November, but then in October was when we went to Dentsply Sirona World.
Yeah.
And in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And Road Dental Lab was there.
Were you there as a booth?
No, we were just visiting.
Oh, you're attendees.
Yeah, we were attending I don't even know why we decided to attend it.
You like the band that was playing? They always go in all out.
It was cool.
Yeah, they go all out.
But we didn't actually go into that. We couldn't afford those tickets.
Was it the one with Journey?
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah.
But we self-funded all of this at this point.
Oh,
Bootstrapped everything. We didn't raise any money for this. And so we, at that point, were just trying to get by, right? And then, so I went up to the Row booth, and they, at that time, had a product called Smile Lock Roto Dental Lab.
Okay, yeah.
I actually worked for them for a hot minute right after Straumann.
Yeah, okay.
And that technology, to me, the reason why I left was because it wasn't working. I was trying to sell it, and it would just, the crowns would come loose.
Oh, yeah,
and
that's not good.
So when I saw that they had it.
I remember this little device.
Yeah. And then it would heat up, and then it would change. The thing would come off.
Yeah.
And so when I saw that they were selling it and pushing it as a product that was innovative and all that stuff for their full arch cases, I was surprised. And so I was so I went up to their booth. I was like, how is this going for you guys? And
a lot of success.
Yeah, and they were all excited about it at the time. I think they're less excited about it now because they've had some issues with it.
Yeah.
But so I was like, oh, cool. And then they just happened to ask me. I don't know who was there, but they were like, well, what are you guys doing here? What do you guys do? Who are you guys? Right?
I think BJ was there.
Was it BJ?
Yeah. Was it BJ?
Yeah. And we're like, well, we're kind of just showing people this device that we created, OptiSplint, right? And we showed it to him, and he was like, hold on, wait, so this thing is you figured out a way to basically guarantee the accuracy of the jig and the scan, right? And we're like, yeah. And it's like, do you have any idea how long we've been trying to figure this out ourselves?
Yeah.
I need you to meet Dr. Isaac Towell. And so he brought us to Dr. Isaac Towell, showed it to him, and he freaked out, right?
Nice.
And so this was our first.
I think he was asking us how much supply we had.
Yeah.
Really?
But this was our first introduction to people getting excited about our product,
really?
Right?
That's
because
hilarious.
we're like, oh my God, you understand it and you get it, And so we started talking to them, and we started to figure out, if there's a way for them to launch it, and they wanted to private label it. That's how they ended up with.
That's what Row does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how they ended up with Grammetry.
Yep.
And so they are the only dental lab in the country that we allow to private label OptiSplint.
But it's the same thing.
It's the same thing.
Okay, yeah.
And so we make, custom boxes for them, the whole nine. They launched it. They put it out there on the market. They got hundreds, 1,000 people on their first webinar, and they started talking about it.
Did they ask you guys to talk on the webinar, or was it
No,
all them?
it was all them.
Okay.
And then they introduced it to the world, right, as their product, and we were fine with it because we were going nowhere with it at the time.
And you were just making money off of them,
yeah.
obviously.
Yeah. And I mean, he wrote me a check for the biggest check I've ever seen in my life.
Nice.
Right? And so I was excited.
You got a picture of it?
Yeah. We probably do. I still probably have it. And then the same month, I also reached out to Dr. Ryan Dunlop, who was in charge
the
of,
Masters.
Full Arch Masters. And he was doing the whole photogrammetry thing, and he thought it was interesting, right? And so he said, hey, why don't you bring it up? I'm having another course coming up. Bring it up, show it to me. Let's try it. Let's work. Let's do a couple cases. I went up there. We did a couple cases with him. And he was impressed, and he got it too. He understood, hey, this is the first time I'm seeing something where I feel I can hang my hat on it and say this is just as good as photogrammetry.
Yeah.
And it's a good alternative to photogrammetry.
Love it, yeah.
And so from him talking about it there and Ro talking about it at the same time, it really just kind of started to blow up, right?
Yep.
And
there was no issues with Ro selling theirs and you selling it?
I mean, that was the deal we made, right? Because we were two guys. I was packaging up out of my house. I had a lab in my my test lab was in my garage. Like the whole Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, starting in the garage. That was totally true of us too. And so we had nowhere near the operation that Rode did, right? So we were grateful for all the business, and they were 50%. They were like our first month. They were 80-90% of our business.
Sure.
Right?
Because you still had the website up.
Yeah.
Selling.
And so we would sell a few at every single one of the Full Arch Masters because they recognized that even though most of them were buying photogrammetry at the time, they would be like, well, what if the computer fails? What if the photogrammetry machine fails? And so if those fail, you want to have some kind of backup. Yeah. And that's how we sold it there. And that went really well because Ryan put his
stamp of approval.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That really helped us out a lot. That kind of propelled us to the next level, right? And we started to really generate sales from there, and it started to kind of really blow up. And then at the end of 2023, we started talking about a fiducial marker. Mm-hmm. And it was actually something that we had talked about, and we actually made a version of it before we launched OptiSplint.
Yeah, probably for a solid year. We were talking about it, and we had just a early version of it that was just basically a cone that you'd put a TAD screw through.
But it was titanium, and you can attach it to.
But that had to be titanium, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
And that was kind of reusable too, in a sense that it was separate from the screw.
Yeah.
So the screw that you would use it with was supposedly not reusable, right? But then at least we tried selling those at the beginning. But then we were like, we've got to probably make something that actually is going to be better for this market, right? And we learned a lot more by then, right?
Sure.
About fiducial markers, what were people using, and there was some other stuff out there on the market. I think the Segmark guys had made something, and there's some stuff out there, but there wasn't anything that people felt like they can get easily. So a lot of people are still buying the Salvin fixation.
Oh yeah, the Salvin. Yeah.
Some were 3D printing.
Yeah, some were 3D printing something and just putting a screw through it and just hoping for the best. There was all these things out there, and we were like, you know what? With our expertise and what we've been doing, we just need to create something that, we believe in, right?
Yeah.
And so we just started talking about it, and he designed on his Fusion AutoCAD that he learned in a residency program. And, I felt like when we came out with that product.
What's that called? The
Arch Tracer.
Arch Tracer. Okay.
Yeah.
That was an Opti again.
And that was actually a name we had a long time ago as well for a secondary product next to OptiSplint. OptiSplint and Arch Tracer were the two brands that we had always thought about using.
Yeah.
And so when we came out with Arch Tracer, and it immediately started to get a lot of attention. People really liked it. It was working well. We made some tweaks to it over the first few months to the version that you see today. And what's unique about it is it's unidirectional. So it's kind of the shape of it. There's only one direction that you can align to.
Yeah.
There isn't any, there aren't any sides that are symmetrical or by any means. And then we also made the thread have a fillet up to the head so that it'll actually tighten when you we recommend self-tapping it, right? And you screw it down. A lot of the other screws that were out there, they were like tenting screws. So when you screw it down there's nothing really
just kept spinning.
Yeah, it could keep spinning at some point, right? Whereas with ours, because it tapers up to the head, there's a point where, once as you're screwing it in, we'll just stop and it should stay pretty solidly. And so those were the things that we kind of added to it just to make it a little bit better, right?
Don't you have to go through FDA for all this?
Yeah, so that's what we're starting now.
Oh, geez.
And so this stuff is, you technically you do, and we are working on all that. We're doing our 510K, all that stuff.
That sucks.
It's expensive. It's definitely a barrier to entry. But I mean, the success that we've had in the manufacturing, we've figured out how to manufacture at a pretty reasonable cost, and we've been able to generate enough revenue in order to and profit in order to fund a lot of what we wanted to do. We have a patent out there on OptiSplint. We have a patent out there on actual verification jigs with a frame.
Oh, really?
Without even scanning. We have
nice.
We have a patent on a new screw that we're working on, and we're doing some other things that we're working on as well, kind of coming up in the future as well. But like all that stuff just came from the sales of OptiSplint and ArchTracer over the last couple of years. And ArchTracer really has become it was really neat to see it become like a darling of the full arch digital dentistry world, right? Because it's being used by not just people who use OptiSplint, but people that use photogrammetry, XIOS, the Shining scanner, like everybody that anytime you hear somebody ask or see somebody ask about a fiducial marker on Facebook or Instagram or stuff like that, you always see people recommending ArchTracer.
Nice.
And
that's the place you want to be.
Yeah, and that's been a lot of fun for us to see, right?
So when did Digital Arches, the company, start? Way back then, or
2020?
2020.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's always had that name.
So it was the dinner that we had that day, and he showed me that prototype, and he's like, "I'm gonna do a study," and I said, "No, you shouldn't do a study. I want to be rich, and we should, if that works, that's gonna take over full arch dentistry."
Yeah,
it didn't work. But
it was Danny's greed. Yeah,
it was my greed that created this company, and
I just wanted to be a selfless academic.
You're still wanting to write that paper,
right?
That nobody reads. Are you still a practicing dentist?
Yeah. I practice in Tempe, Arizona.
Okay.
Yeah, with another prosthodontist, Mark Montana.
I mean, how involved are you with the day-to-day operations?
Still.
Really?
Yeah, kind of the higher end tech support. I'll jump on with people.
He is R&D.
Yeah,
he is.
I still get on and design a lot. So
do you really?
On future products, things like that.
That's fun.
I'll jump on.
Yeah. What are the future products you guys
but
talk
less,
about?
I would say less involved from a day-to-day perspective with the business than
you're not in this
Danny.
garage packaging up.
Right, exactly.
We're not packaging in a garage anymore. We do have an office now.
Oh, do you? Good for you. That's a
and
big
it is
step.
an FDA facility, registered facility. No, I mean we still have, and this is part of the most fun I've ever had in any kind of job that I've ever done. We still have these amazing conversations all the time about just
nerdy implant
talking
parts.
about
I love
pieces, parts, what could be better, what could be different, what's working, what's not working. And we've developed a lot of neat things like the ArchTracer, like, unique parts of the OptiSplint that just aren't available in other systems, right? So the scan cap that you easily align directly to tissue to the implant positions, the analog scan cap that allows you to align the bite from a temporary prosthesis to to the implant positions. So in every single OptiSplint kit that you would get, you should be getting a couple packages of our analog scan caps. They friction fit into a temporary prosthesis in the analog positions.
And the intaglio surface? And then what?
And then you could also put those same analog scan caps into an OptiSplint jig.
To verify?
And then you could just align those two together. Because right now, if you want to, let's say, the patient got a converted denture and they want to go from a analog workflow to a digital workflow for the final, right? The lab would tell them, well, I need you to, if I'm doing photogrammetry, I need you to scan the upper, the prosthesis, and then let's say the prosthesis on the upper, scan the prosthesis and the lower dentition, the opposing dentition, and then the bite, right?
Then
but when you scan the upper, I need you to scan as much
of the soft tissue,
the palate, everything, because I'm going to use all that to align the bite
100%.
to the implant positions, right? Well, what we did, instead of forcing, because on lowers, that's a nightmare.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So what we did was, instead of forcing people to scan all that extra random stuff on the lower and tissue and bone or whatever, we created these analog scan caps that you would just put into, you would scan the bite still, but you would take out the temporary prosthesis, and then you just put those analog scan caps in the temporary prosthesis.
Yeah.
You would lute together the OptiSplint in the mouth, take it out, and then you would put the analog scan caps in the OptiSplint. And now
you're scanning the bottom of the OptiSplint and then the bottom of the temporary you took out with the same analogs.
Yep.
And
then now you have a way of easily aligning.
Called?
They're analog scan caps.
Oh, that's not fancy.
They're in our kits. They're in every kit.
I got a kit. I don't know. I gotta look again. Well, I don't even read the instructions apparently. So that's wild.
So yeah, I mean that gives you the ability to easily align all of your data without needing to, go through the trouble of scanning and all that hard to scan data.
Yeah,
right?
No, for sure.
And
it's
so
fascinating.
That's stuff like that just come from our conversations all the time, right?
And this works going into 3Shape and exocad?
We do have a 3Shape library that Des helped us create, and then we have an exocad library that
we do it in exocad, but it's flawless.
Everybody's doing it in exocad.
Yeah, this thing's drop in. I've never had an issue.
And that's the thing. That's what we're trying to get to.
And I'm not even doing it right.
Well, I mean, yeah, there's definitely ways to, and we've always just tried different ways to improve it, right? But that's what I felt we've always had is I feel like we've always been able to think about and figure out some of these problems and ideas at a higher level than what a lot of other people out there are doing, right? And we come up with solutions that I feel like we're able to bring real value to the marketplace. And that's something that's really kind of kept me really, really engaged with him working together with Dr. Crockett because, I do feel like us two having those conversations is something that's unique and special and hard to replicate.
Yeah.
And between the design and manufacturing, we can prototype things pretty quick.
Right.
That's
so
cool.
It's
nice.
And that's a skill. It's a skill that's been developed over the last few years. He's improving constantly on sourcing things, and then I'm still improving on the CAD aspect of it.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's.
Yeah, we've come out with. Recently, we also changed our analog scan or MUA scan caps, the ones that you use
the white
tissue
ones?
alignments. Yeah. So we actually changed those to make them radio opaque. So instead of and this is actually an idea that we thought about before. Actually, it was one of the first. We thought the digital workflow was done this way when we first released when we first were developing OptiSplint. We didn't even know about fiducial markers.
Yeah.
And so we were talking to surgeons that we were like, hey, would it be okay if you guys took an X-ray or a CT scan after surgery? And they're like, no, we're not moving our patient from this.
Yeah,
from
our original thought process was to use a cone beam.
Yep.
Oh.
Post-op to align to the pre-op.
That would have been a huge barrier to a lot of people.
We found that out pretty quick.
They were like, no, we're not doing that, right? Yeah. But like more recently, and so we never really developed the idea, but more recently, Charles Bond out of Oregon, he was like, I've been doing these. He started printing like radio opaque material, like with barium sulfate.
Yeah.
Like healing caps that he would use with CT scans. And so what he was able to do was he was able to kind of get that OptiSplint jig, and then he would scan. He would just do it instead of using a fiducial marker. He would just do a CT scan after the surgery, and then he would use those radio opaque scan caps to align to the OptiSplint scans, right? And so, and he was like, "This is the right way to do it," because now, if you really think about it, how much during surgery do you struggle with that lower scan?
Oh, a ton. There's tons.
Yeah,
there's times where I've had to give up.
Right.
Honestly.
And then how many times have you been to a surgery, you don't get there early enough, and the doctor's already halfway through surgery, and you didn't put the fiducial marker in?
Yep.
Right? Or the fiducial marker moved.
I haven't witnessed that, but, yeah, I bet you it happens, yeah.
So, yeah, those are all things that happen out there. And from his perspective, he's like, well, if they were radio opaque and they were easy to align, I would never, ever, ever have to worry about those things ever again. And he doesn't even have to scan. He lutes the OptiSplint together. There is no intraoral scanning whatsoever during surgery.
How?
Because you're using the bone to do the alignment of all the different pieces, right? And then even to get the tissue, he just puts cotton rolls between the cheek and the tissue.
It seems like
and
it's
then he does a CT scan after surgery. Well, it depends, right? So he does a CT scan after surgery, and then he could dial up the what is it? The
threshold.
The threshold, so that you could actually see the tissue. So he gets a tissue from the CT scan also.
Interesting.
And so he does all of that, and from his perspective, it it makes it so the doctor does not have to do any intraoral scanning whatsoever. And there's no fiducial markers. So it makes the surgery a lot easier and a lot faster.
And you lose the intraoral inaccuracies of the hand movement.
Correct.
Interesting.
And then so now you have a way, and now imagine like as we start to scale our company, right? There's doctors that are like, yeah, let's do it digitally. I want to learn how to do it. Can you teach me how to use the fiducial markers, what scans I need, all that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. That's what people were spending all that money going to full arch masters to learn, right?
Yeah.
But now with this radio opaque scan cap, Charles Bond in his lab, he can literally say, doctor, surgeon, doing full arch case, do surgery like you always done. Don't change a thing. Like, I just need you're going to put these scan caps in to suture around. Yeah. I'm going to come in. We're going to do a CT scan of the patient once they're awake. I'm going to loop the OptiSplint jig together, and then I'm just going to take off. That doctor never has to learn any digital workflow at all. And so that's where the next group of people that are doing these cases are, right? Like they're happy with the guy coming in converting their dentures.
Yeah, I know
right?
those people. Yeah.
They don't want to change.
I don't want to do them.
And so if you can get those people now,
yeah.
right? Now everybody can get into a digital workflow. And so that's why we really tried to prioritize in our first version of it. It's radio opaque. It's pretty good. Our most recent one that we've been working on that we just started prototyping is now we've tried to make the material of that scan cap a similar radio opacity to bone.
Oh.
And so he had to go through all this testing recently.
Can you just make them out of bone? That'd be fun.
Right, yeah.
Start harvesting.
But that's an idea of stuff that, like, even right now, we're still trying to find ways to improve on the system, make it better. And
sounds like you're having fun, too. Sounds like you both kind of, nerd out on it and enjoy it. And
yeah. We're very different people. You'd think that we have a lot more conflict, but we love just, like, randomly talking to each other all the time. It's really
I love it. You ever
really
going to stop doing dentistry from this, or do you think you'll always be a dentist?
I think I'll always be a dentist. Yeah.
Because you could turn this into something, just huge if it isn't already.
Yeah, it depends on where things go.
Yeah.
But, going to school for so long, and there's some passion there for dentistry.
Sure.
So maybe at some point that passion will be gone after dealing with so many difficult pros patients. But we'll see what the future holds.
Yeah.
But no plans at the moment to.
Nice.
To
he's
step
also
away.
working in one of the premier prosthodontic offices in Tempe, Arizona, with Dr. Mark Montana, who's very, very well known across the country for all the speaking engagements that he does. So, but it's also nice for him to have that, kind of daily.
I don't see myself ever. Right now, I'm in private practice 2.5, 3 days a week.
Yeah, and that's it. Nice.
Yeah, that's it. So I.
Why would you give that up?
I would prefer not to do more.
Yeah, okay.
Just because clinical dentistry is very difficult.
Sure.
Backbreaking work. The emotional aspect of speaking with patients.
Then you spend all your free time on CAD software.
Fun stuff. Yeah, exactly. So it's nice to have that break in the schedule. So,
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
DigitalArches.com, is that it?
DigitalArches.com. You can learn more about OptiSplint and Arch Tracer there. We are actually, right now, one of our biggest pushes is to try to work with as many dental labs and get them certified with our workflow as possible.
Oh, there's a certification we can get?
Yeah. So if you want to, you can get on.
Won't give me one since I can't even do it right.
Well, that's part of this conversation, right? And that's part of the conversation that we're having is that when you go on, you sign up on this Get Certified link on our website. We'll reach out to you and we'll set up a meeting. My business development director, Autumn Shoemaker, and I are probably meeting with 2 or 3 dental labs every single day.
Wow.
That we're not traveling, at least.
Yeah.
Just trying to help them understand. Like in the beginning, we're meeting with the dental labs that have been working with us for a long time, so they know the process, they know what it is. But we wanted to kind of get an idea of how it's working in their office, right, or in their dental labs, and what are they doing? Are they doing something differently? Because now, as we start to meet dental labs that don't have as much experience or just kind of figuring it out on their own, whatever it is, we can kind of give them some of these pearls that we've been learning from these other dental labs and how they're implementing it, right? And so we're using kind of a lot of these meetings just to get as many people, as many dental labs as we can to learn how to do it digitally with OptiSplint, because our goal ultimately is to make a digital full arch case as easy and as democratized as possible, right?
Yeah.
As many people can do it, as many clinicians can do it, more access for patients. We want a world where everything comes down in price a little bit, so that's more accessible, so that more people that don't have dentists, don't have the ability to pay the $25,000, $30,000 to get this done, can start to get it done more, right? And that's our mission. And so we want to try to teach as many dental labs with, what we believe is the right way to do it, with a low-cost device that doesn't require a huge investment up front, to be able to learn how to do it this way. If they want to move to photogrammetry from there, go for it.
Why would they,
right?
though?
We hope that they don't.
I mean, I don't understand why people do, but whatever.
But, to each their own, right? But, I mean, there is part of it is, like, because doctors don't understand all of the things that we just talked about, right?
Yeah.
What makes things accurate? Why is it accurate? All they think about is, like, it has to be modelless and fully digital.
It just needs to work.
For them, for them, it's like, oh, photogrammetry is sexier.
They
right?
do like their toys.
So that's the biggest problem that we run into, is that the dental labs, they love our product.
Yeah.
But when they bring it to the doctor's like, but that's not fully digital.
I've not run into that. I mean, they're all game for it, the ones that I've introduced to. I mean, an office introduced it to me originally. That's why I never learned you scan outside the mouth. But, yeah, I mean.
I wish you would have come to us earlier.
I didn't even know I needed to. That's the problem. It worked.
Yeah.
If it didn't work, I'd be like, something's up. But
so that's what we're doing right now. Is like, I want every lab out there that's interested in doing a full arch digital workflow to get certified by Digital Arches on how to do these full arch cases digitally. Everybody that goes through that certification process can get on our website. We are doing labs of the month. Charles Bond has made some really excellent educational webinars for us that we are making free to everybody that's getting certified with us.
I should probably watch a couple.
And I hope you will. And and everybody that does get certified automatically gets a discount on buying any
there you go.
our products. So we want to partner with labs as much as possible. That is our core.
Well, we're the coolest. We're cooler than.
And that is our core market. I mean, at the end of the day, I think we created a great product, but that product could not be successful unless we found the right market for it, right?
Yeah.
And we did see a dip in sales for OptiSplint when it transitioned from, all these clinicians being interested in it because there wasn't really a lot out there to suddenly there's all this noise of all these other options out there, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, well, we'd rather try the thing that's fully digital, right? And so we saw a dip. But then as we started
running back,
we started focusing more on labs, and now we're seeing growth again.
We see the point of it.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's when we were like, well, this is our audience. These are our
awesome.
people.
And that's why you're here at Cal Lab.
Exactly.
And Lab Day.
Exactly. Why we were talking to you.
Yes, I love it.
So,
gentlemen, we got to end because I don't even really edit these things, and you're over an hour.
Well, I appreciate you.
Yeah, Dr. Crockett, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
DigitalArches.com.
DigitalArches.com.
Everybody gets certified. Thanks a lot, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Have a good one.
A big thanks to Danny and Dr. Crockett. I'm really sorry I missed that conversation, but thank you for sitting down with Elvis at the Cal Lab Association meeting. I cannot believe that I actually can believe that you talked to them for over an hour. That is I think that is your favorite subject.
I can
Other
really
than the
talk about it.
podcasts and social media, which are big ones too. But
Yeah, you weren't there to stop me.
I know. We keep hearing of ways to do these cases without photogrammetry and would love to talk to some people using it and explain why it's needed. But until then, we recommend everyone check out digitalarches.com to get a kit or to even get your lab certified to be the go-to lab for the OptiSplint cases. And we all know BJ's amazing, so Ro's right in it.
Yeah, Ro started a lot of this. And I actually, as soon as I get back that first week in April, we're getting certified.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
All right, everybody. Barb and I are on day 3. They tell me it feels like day 5. We still got a little bit of time today, and we're going to keep recording. And we got tomorrow, and then we're out.
Yes.
So we will still talk to you next week. Have a good one.
Have a good one.
Bye. I don't even remember. Oh, 66. Good. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Can you read this?
Yeah.
I can make it bigger.
No.
Okay.
That's what she said.
The views and opinions expressed on the Voices from the Bench podcast are those of the guest and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the host or Voices from the Bench, LLC.